Just two adjacent girls living in a lovely world. They took a podcast train going anywhere, but kind of specifically through Austin, Texas. Yeah, hook 'em horns.
Adjacent, very near, next to, or touching. Our tailgate is adjacent to the left field fence. ADJACENT, adjacent.
Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back to Adjacent. Today we have a very special interview. Our guest comes all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana, and he's originally from San Antonio. We're going to ask him some questions. I think you're going to be highly motivated by him. Who did we invite to join us today, Shelley?
This is a very special guest, and this is an adjacent, like, deep dive, if you will. We were first introduced to this person during the Mary Wynn interview, and promptly after her story reached out to Professor Dr. Christian Bolden, and that's our guest today. And we're very excited to do that adjacent connection and share kind of the rest of the story. Like Paul Harvey, we're doing, and now the rest of the story with adjacent.
And I think you're going to be motivated by his life story and how he was going down a path that was dangerous and just putting him in peril and putting people around him in peril. And then he pivoted, he changed, something happened, and we're going to figure out what happened to make him make that change. Sometimes we get in terrible situations or we find ourselves in a compromised place, and he's going to shed some light on what he did to get out of that situation. We're so excited to have him. Without any more hesitation, let's go ahead and introduce you to
Christian Bolden.
Here he is. We're here with Christian Bolden. We're so excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us all the way from New Orleans.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
We were saying that you are connected with Mary Wynn. That's my sister-in-law. And then Mary Livers is my cousin-in-law. So I married into a very amazing, dynamic family. And now we get to meet you. And I've been wanting to meet you for years.
Yeah, I love both of the Marys. They're very beautiful.
Both of the Marys. I love it. They're so fun.
Yeah, so we just have a few questions for you, but we're going to let you just share as much as you're willing to share.
Okay.
So right now you're living in New Orleans and you're a professor at Loyola. How long have you been a professor?
I have been a professor in some capacity now for almost 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I saw that you also worked in San Marcos at Texas State and have done other amazing things. But let me start with, tell us a little about your childhood.
So I grew up in San Antonio, and my parents were military. There's a lot of military bases in San Antonio, but we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't really recognize that at first. I primarily grew up in a trailer park. My father, he lost his military career, or decided not to keep going with it. And then the family struggled quite a bit for a while after that. And he was just mostly gone all the time. Like, he didn't come home from work. He stayed at the bar every night. And so, I was kind of a typical 80s kid that they just, threw out to be feral.
Yes,
So
we
he
were
would
too.
go
That's
outside,
us.
don't come back until, nighttime, and uh, ended up, having a whole lot of wild adventures, surviving on our own without supervision. But my interactions with my parents were mostly from me getting in trouble. And my father drank a whole lot, and when I did interact with him, it was when he was putting the belt to me. So, which I got lucky because previously it had been the switch if I was at
Oh,
my
man.
grandparents' house. So, so that was rough. That was a bit rough. But I didn't know much different
Right.
from that until I was in the Judson school district. Talked about Judson with Mary,
Yes.
and they gerrymandered all the time. All right, they just kept redrawing district lines, so
Right.
it bounced us from school to school, right? So we would get all these different experiences. And one school, elementary school I went to was already just packed with gangs, right? Or gang wannabes or what have
Elementary.
you. In elementary, yeah. I mean, the school was like covered in graffiti, just going there. Um, which I didn't understand that. I didn't have that context, but I learned very quickly because I had made the mistake of liking a girl who supposedly was a girlfriend of supposed gang member. So they just
Wow.
Jody, does that sound familiar?
Yes. We grew up, we were bused in Austin from Southwest Austin to East Austin, which we thought was incredible. But we became really good friends with all the gang members because
Yeah.
they provide like a level of protection. And so you did not turn your back on the gang members. You just became like buddies with them.
But and Jody in middle school, she was dating somebody that one of the gang members wanted to date, and they were like, we're coming after your sister, and I was like, no, no, and I was like, Jody, you have to break up with him.
I was like, you could have them.
You can have him. I'm out. So we understand, and
We get it. Yeah.
I've read part of your book, and your writing is amazing. We're going to talk about it on book club, the next book club we have. But your experience of busing is so different from ours, and
Right.
I've sat on quite a few district groups. Talking about realigning schools and stuff like that. And I'm always like, bring busing back. We had such a beautiful experience over in Johnston. But I'm hearing your story of busing and how Jody in elementary school, they were shifted like 3 times. Is that right, Christian?
Yeah.
And
And then you can't build
elementary
relationships with your teachers that's hard to build a relationship.
Yeah, and the cultures were so different. After that, the gang involved school, we went back to a middle class school, but we were already just rough and tumble at that point.
Right.
And so we didn't fit in the middle class school. So yeah, it was problematic in a few ways.
And sometimes, so I work in a behavior unit in elementary. I work with kinder through fifth, but for a while they were centralized placements of students from all over Austin would come to my unit, and they had a lot of trauma behaviors, and but sometimes they really became leaders of the school in a good way because they had such a interesting way of they had to move from that other school because they were blowing it up basically, and then they came to us, and we're so loving and embracing, and our school was very diverse. It's not as diverse now because of taxes in Austin are ridiculous. People can't afford to live here, but the kids would flourish a lot of times, but it was because we built a lot of relationships. But if you're being bounced from school to school to school, you're not able to build a relationship with people. And then your reputation starts, following you.
So I think you hit on a key there. You said you were very, very loving, and that having those warm relationships, having those allies, in adults, we didn't have that. We were in the zero tolerance era. They just kicked us out of school. They didn't want to deal with us. They saw us as the problem, the enemy, etc. So
and it was corporal punishment was still the go-to. We know all about that.
quite a few spankings from the frontier.
Yeah, yeah. Our brother, he went to an elementary school in Austin, and the principal grabbed him by the ear and walked him home. And then my mom was like, "No, no, 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 no." So obviously you grew up. There was some abuse, although you're kind of painting it very nicely. So you had a lot of factors that were taking you down a specific road. And what what were the events that cemented your situation with, you know, kind of joining the crowd or falling into line?
Yeah, well, I think it was just kind of a confluence of everything kind of coming together. It just so happened in San Antonio at that time, gangs were just really blowing up, right? It was just this era where these gang movies have been coming out, disseminating the culture for multiple reasons. San Antonio just becomes this flashpoint of gangs everywhere. So the majority of actual social groups within youth, especially youth who don't have a direction already, like sports or preps or whatever,
Right.
they end up falling into those gangs, and so neighborhood by neighborhood near me becomes associated with particular gangs. Everybody I'm around, starts associating with friends that are wearing red. Um, and we go to Judson High School, and Judson's so massive, and we're just all just lost, the fresh fish who don't know what to do, where to go. You're just a nobody. You don't already have this clout, this social capital, things like that. It just seems kind of natural, to gravitate towards these groups of friends, since all of them are coming from similar situations with absent parents, dysfunctional families, things like that. And they just don't have that clout of the jocks and preps, so we just end up getting together, and it seems natural at the time.
Right. And what were the dynamics in your gang? Because where did you fall in the gang? How does that hierarchy, it's obviously a hierarchy, I'm assuming?
It's not. So
Oh,
I think
okay.
one of the biggest misnomers, the vast majority of gangs are much more horizontal, if you will, right? Rather than hierarchy. Kids, they don't like listening to anybody. Right?
No.
They just don't.
And as a feral kid that's now an adult, I still don't like to listen to
Hey, don't tell me.
So you do end up having people who have more clout, but that's just because. So I end up becoming one of them, but that's just because I acted more crazy, right? And so for some people that was impressive, right? So they would follow me around or things like that. But there was no direct leadership, right? Is just kind of more democratic anarchy. We did what we did together. Whoever wanted to be involved could. Others would make excuses because they didn't really want to get that deep into it, but they still wanted that affiliation to carry them through, right? And so that's what ends up happening. You have the more intense people who have more dysfunctional families get into more serious things, and all the people on the periphery, they ride the coattails, right? This
Right.
like that they have that protection because people know they're associated with those dudes over there who are crazy.
So, Christian, one time, I was in high school and um, I was on the drill team and I had a bunch of girls in my car and we were on the east side and I was the only one with a car. My dad had bought me like this used car. It was an old Mustang. It was really funny. It had no doors. He got the doors put on and I was the one that would drive everybody everywhere. And so my friends were like, "Hey, drive down this street." Well, it was 4th Street where the brothers hung out. This was their gang sign, like the number 4. And all of a sudden, all the girls have hit the floorboard of my car. Like they're all laying down. I said, What's going on? And why are all these men in the middle of the day just standing around? Like grown men just standing around, just hanging out. I was like, I don't understand. They said, "Don't make eye contact, keep driving." And then they told me afterwards where we had driven through and what we,
Oh my god.
okay, great. So you're in the gang, you've done some wild things, obviously. And then when did you start getting involved with the police, I guess, so to speak? When did you start building a relationship with
When did you build a relationship with the police?
I wouldn't call it a relationship. Very abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So one of the things about, getting a reputation, and this is something I harp on, is you get the label, right?
Yes.
So I did a lot of bad things, a lot of crazy things, but then because my name was known, then I got the blame for a lot of things that I didn't do. So the teachers, the authority figures at school, the principals would often accuse me of things that had nothing to do with me. But it was zero tolerance. So it didn't matter. Like, they didn't have to have evidence. They would just kick me out of school. I didn't finish a single year of school starting in the
Wow.
8th grade, right? I got kicked out of school every single year. I was always suspended or in alternative school. And alternative school was just, you went to this like trailer, they gave you your work to do and told you to shut up, and that's it, right? So you never learned anything. So I just end up, not being in school a whole lot. And when you're not in the school, you're already feral in the streets, gang involved. You're gonna encounter the police. Actually, the first encounter I have is, I went back up to school one time when I was suspended to, try to talk to the girls, and I get chased by the police and get a criminal trespass charge. And then, a whole lot of fighting, things like that before things get pretty intensely serious, because now just there's school doesn't want me. There's no point in being there anymore.
Right. Oh, that's so sad. It just breaks my heart.
No, it's the total opposite of Jody's
That's
education.
not what we do, and
Yeah.
our SBS unit, we are very like, and that's one thing that I like, is because our kids will get blamed for things. I'm like, they weren't even there. So
Yeah.
they have an advocate for them going, that's not happening. We're right here. We're seeing everything that's going on, because they can become the scapegoat for a lot of other kids, which drives me nuts. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I could only imagine. So you didn't feel welcomed at school. You had a rough home life, for the most part. And so you're kind of on this path. There's no way that you're gonna find another route out. The gang becomes your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then did you have to serve some time in jail as you got older?
Yeah. Well, not as I got older. I mean, I was 17. And so at this point, I actually, I get a serious girlfriend. And she actually gets me to calm down a whole lot, right? Because I want to spend all my time with her. I'm in love, uh,
Right.
the homies are not exactly happy about it, but whatever, right? But she lives in an opposing gang's neighborhood. But I'm not afraid of them. They don't have as much clout as me. I kind of am a little too cocky and just, waltz through their neighborhood like I don't care, right?
Hi.
But then a sequence of events happens where um, we get a few more members, some of them that are even more wild than we're
Yeah.
you dealing with, right? And uh, it results in a shooting, right? And I wasn't the culprit, right? But I was there, right?
Right.
And people saw me there. And so word got out that I was there. And then when they arrested us for that, I got released right away because I wasn't the one who did it. But the news showed me, right? I used to have like braids down past my shoulder. So it was like the news was just focused on me. So my face was everywhere. Everybody thought I did it. So then other gangs who want revenge for that, right? I become the focus, the target. Like,
Oh
I'm
my
the
God.
one who did it, even though I wasn't. So they end up, connecting with the gang who the neighborhood that my girlfriend lives in, right? And so they're rolling around there, and they catch me and her walking by ourselves. I'm slipping. Um, I don't have any protection on me, no, nothing. So they get out, and first they grab me, and there's some girls with them, and they hold me, and then they beat up my girlfriend, and then they beat up me.
Oh.
So after that, like I'm furious. I'm steaming. I want to get revenge. All the homies come over that evening. They talking crazy. Everybody wants to do something. So I said, let's go in the morning. I know where they live. I know where they hang out. But, gangsters don't typically get up in the morning. So just a couple of people, got up. So we went out, and I went over to the spot they hang out, and I called them out. I said, I'll fight each one of you one-on-one. But they refused to come out. So then, that night we start getting riled up again, start drinking too much, and then go back and I shoot at them. The police already knew because they had come to the event where my girlfriend and I had got beaten up because it was right in public. There was a lot of people witnessing that. So the police were just waiting for the police were waiting right around the corner. So they got me immediately, like within seconds. So I end up going to prison for that at 17. And 17, then I was considered an adult in Texas. And so I went to the Texas adult prison system, and that was hell. That was pure hell.
Oh my gosh. When kids are tried as adults, I'm like, their brain is not developed at all. Yes, they might know right from wrong, but they're so easily persuaded to do things, and they're working off of their hormones. It just drives me crazy when they get tried as adults. I just like, no,
Well,
they're not. No.
But and also Christian's story just feels like everything was pushing you in that direction.
Absolutely.
And what was prison life like? Were you in San Antonio or?
hell.
Prison was pure hell. So I happened to go to prison at this point in time in Texas, where Texas engages on the most extreme experiment in mass incarceration in history, right? So up until this point, right, like up until 89, Texas obviously is big. It had 30 prisons, right? But then Texas goes on this prison expansion and builds 80 prisons within 8 years to 130 prisons, which
And
is
so they need to fill it.
yes, right. And so then they just start filling it up with people for everything.
Right.
But they do this. Maybe it's a remedy for towns where the oil went bust or agricultural industry is not doing well. So a lot of these towns, prisons become the industry, but they're not prepared for this, right? So you don't need education or anything to be a correctional officer, right? So they're
Right.
just hiring, all these people, don't really have the training for it. So you have this void of control where gangs begin to emerge and battle very rapidly, right? It becomes
Right.
this really chaotic place of warfare. And most of the new prisons aren't like what people see in the TV with, the closed cells. They're just giant open warehouses where you have 100 bunk beds and nothing to separate you. So you're in a situation where you're always in fear for your life because you eventually have to sleep sometimes, and people are going to wait, and get you.
It's just a recipe for a disaster. You have people who aren't trained, they're low income probably, they haven't had a full education, mostly that are working a lot in the prison systems. I couldn't imagine doing that job for sure, but it takes a lot. You have to, people who have been through trauma, who are having in those situations, they need care. It's about care, and it's about treating people with respect. And a lot of times that wasn't happening.
And that wasn't the goal of their system at that point. They were just trying to get bodies in
Almost
to make
there.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, rehabilitation, caring for people, that was the last thing
Yeah.
on their agenda. That wasn't there at all.
At
No.
all.
And how long did you serve in prison?
So I received an 8-year sentence. I served 5 years. And then one of the things that they did, because there were so many prisons and it was so chaotic, is their solution for everything, which they constantly had gang war after gang war, but the solution was just to mix everybody up and send you to a different place. So you were constantly bounced to new prisons, right? And you never knew. They would call you at 3 o'clock in the morning and get you up, chain you, put you on a bus, and you didn't know where in Texas you would end up.
Oh my gosh, how scary. Ugh.
And then
And
the
that-
family wouldn't know for weeks.
Yeah. And then the sad thing is this was mirroring your childhood, moving from school to school.
Yeah.
You're not building relationships. And then the relationships you are building are not positive relationships. So
Did you have fellow gang members in the prison system with you at the time?
There weren't people that I knew directly from the streets, right? But when I went in, there were people, because the gang that I was in was so large. There were people in that, right? And so I would connect with them when I went in initially, and that was for the first year or so, before I decided to leave the gang, to make it official that I didn't want to be involved anymore.
gosh.
So you were in prison from 17 to 24?
22.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
And so when you got out of prison, what happened?
Well, so you probably remember this era. Having a felony conviction is a major stigma, right? It was impossible to get
It's
a
not
job.
like today that you could be a president or anything. Back then.
We're not going political, Shelley.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I couldn't get a job at a fast food place, right? Everybody rejected me. I went to San Marcos, I went to the outlet balls. I applied to every single place. I didn't get a single call back, right? And this was difficult because I was also on parole, and as part of the parole requirement is that you have a job, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's gonna give you a job. So I was stuck and in trouble and panicked, etc. Right before I left, the last place I was at in prison, which was the Wallace unit in Colorado City, West Texas, like
Wow.
pretty much desert. I
Yes.
actually got a college education. I got a associate's degree,
Awesome.
and I loved that. Right, when I did that, I discovered sociology. And then reading about sociology, I saw that I wasn't a defective individual. There's a lot of people who've been through this same situation. This is a pattern, right? There's social forces that happen, so on and so forth. So I was in love with that. And so, being out, not being able to get a job, I wanted to go back to school. And that was difficult also because the parole officers, a lot of them were negative and were telling me no, right? They were like, no, you just need to get a job. You can't go to school. Schools don't want you, things like that. Which is a terrible thing, in retrospect. But it just so happened, this kind of concurrence of events, where my mother gets a job in San Marcos, and Southwest Texas State, which is what it was called at the time,
Yes.
was there, and I applied and they accepted me. So I was like, okay, right. So I went full time, and at the same time with jobs, I was, you know, I'm very stubborn. So even though I've had hundreds of rejections, I was still going door to door, and I finally walked into a Little Caesars, and they hired me, and I was so shocked. They hired me as a delivery driver. I was so shocked that I actually reiterated, like, "Are you sure?
Yeah.
Did you not see my background?" And they were like, "Well, you won't be scared to drive in these neighborhoods." And I was like, "Fantastic."
Great.
So, I did pizza delivery, and full-time school, commuting to San Marcos, and was off and running from there.
Yeah, people just have to be given a chance and not be rejected over and over again. And that's incredible. I love that. Shelley was a Southwest Texas Bobcat. She was in the Strutters. Hey, so you're digging your way out. You're finding a new path. That's incredible. And so I do love that you said you're stubborn. I think that persistence usually pays off. So never giving up. And how long, like, what did you get your degree in after that?
So sociology, I was in love with sociology, and I go there, and I love Southwest Texas, now Texas State.
So
But
it's a
it
great place.
was also weird for me because I'm a gangster, former prisoner, and it's mostly middle class kids, right?
Mhm.
Here, right, and we don't connect.
It was not diverse back then. It was
No,
not
it
diverse
was not
at
diverse
all.
at
Now it's
all.
very diverse.
Well, and
Yes.
I remember coming from Johnston, walking through the quad. I was like, where are the Black people? I don't know who to hang out with here. There's no
Yeah,
Black people. And I was like, what the hell? I mean, it's back to, y'all don't do busing here? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a class where, the students were going off against affirmative action, and that's fine, but I was like, there's nobody non-white here, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
so, I
real.
mean, not sure what it is that you're complaining about, because there is there was no diversity at that time. It was hard to make friends. It was hard to date because I was also on an electronic monitor.
Oh gosh.
So I couldn't like go out after a certain time, things like that. But I went and told, my story to one of the professors.
Wow.
Thought that was gonna, I thought that would be positive. It wasn't at first. That she didn't respond in a positive way.
Right.
But she went and told the other professors who did respond
Okay.
in a positive way. And then they kinda took me under their wing, kinda nurtured me, had an open door policy. I could always go in and talk to them. I ended up becoming this star student. I ended up
Awesome.
becoming the president of the honor society.
Wow.
And then I graduate. I wanna go into, like, a social work profession, but I run into the same problem. All the doors are closed. Nobody even wants to give me the time of day. By this time, I have great references. They don't care, like,
Yeah.
nobody. And so I don't know what to do. I end up going to the chair of the department, and she says, "You're going to graduate school." And I said, "I never thought about that."
Wow.
She said, "No, you are going to graduate school. I'm telling you." And so
Right.
I did. I applied, got in, and loved that. And then halfway through, I was the only sociology student who was actually studying criminology, and there were two criminology professors who both died very close to each other. One was up there in age, and she died of brain cancer, but the other one was like 34, and she died of breast cancer
Oh
right
gosh.
in the middle of the semester. And so they told me, "You've got to go and take over her class." And that was awkward, walking into this big class saying your professor passed away and I'm taking over. But I ended up loving it immediately. And so
Yeah.
from then on, I knew I loved teaching. I stayed there and taught at Texas State even after I graduated for a year. But then the chair told me, "No, you need to go get your PhD. And once you do that, all the doors that have been closed to you will be open."
Before we get out of education, Mary said that you were too smart for school.
Yeah.
Too smart for school. And Jody has students that are similar. It's like
Oh my
your
gosh.
your life experience, nobody can comprehend it. And so you've had all this real good life experience, not good, but
No.
it's educational,
Yeah.
real life
Real
experience
life.
that people can't comprehend. And on top of it, you're highly intelligent. And so school is not necessarily it was never a safe place for you.
Right. Wasn't welcoming.
Yeah. But you look at you now.
Yes, yes. And it just takes two people to believe in you
Yeah.
to help those people get to the next level. This is what I'm talking about.
I know. We've talked about it quite a bit, actually.
So you get your PhD in
Yeah.
sociology, criminal justice, and you're a full-blown professor at Texas State. And then what happened?
So I get my master's at Texas State. I go, so for my PhD, I was apprehensive, and for good reason, because it was the same thing. I put in applications all over the place. Most of them I didn't hear from, and come to find out, they didn't have to respond to me, right? Like it was just because of my past, they had to red tape, and they didn't even bother responding. Like, no, you can't come here. And so finally, I was getting desperate. The chair asked me, well, what's left that I'm interested in? And I said, Central Florida in Orlando. I really liked their program. So she calls them and they say, yeah, they've never heard of me. And turns out like admissions didn't even bother reviewing my application. So the chair at Central Florida demands admission, like put it through the process. I have to call, a conference call. I can't see anybody. I have to tell my whole story to a room full of people I can't see, which is super awkward. We're all quiet, and they're like, "Okay, we'll get back to you." And it's like, this is okay, right? But thankfully, it was successful. I, get accepted to Central Florida. I go there, and I didn't realize that Florida has even harsher laws than Texas, and so I couldn't get a place to stay, so I ended up being homeless for a couple of weeks in Orlando because no place would rent to me because I had a felony conviction. And so I'm like, sleeping in hotels, sleeping in my car. Finally, one of the faculty sends me to the Salvation Army, who finds me an apartment complex who will rent to me.
Right.
And then from there, things start getting a whole lot better, right? Florida was way more expensive than Texas. So I end up having to work uh, to an extreme extent. I'm teaching at all the community colleges. I'm teaching at the university. I'm having a PhD program, and I'm walking 3 sets of dogs, right? Just to try to make ends meet.
Wow.
From there, the program was new. They wanted us to have, a leg up. We're competing against all these other established programs. So they're bringing in all these big shots to help us. And they bring in a major gang scholar, Jody Miller. And so I'm like, I attach myself to her hip. I give her my thesis in which I interviewed gang members, and she's impressed. And I don't know this, but like she's part of this big group of like the world's most major gang scholars, and they decide that they want to create a generation of younger gang scholars to train, and she picks me, right? And so they fly us out to Los Angeles and train us in their methods. I take that back, conduct a huge study comparing gangs in Orlando, Florida to San Antonio, Texas, interviewing a bunch of gang members. And then, I graduate with my PhD. And my very first job interview, I knock it out of the box and I get that job, which lands in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh was not my favorite place. I'm not.
I think people that live there would say the same thing.
I'm not a northerner. I am a southern city boy. I do not know how to drive on ice. Pittsburgh has the craziest roads I've ever seen. They're like giant ramps on hills, and then the ice causes the cars just to slide all the way down into Crescent. I fall off the road so many times. I'm like, I'm going to die here. I've got to get out of here. I cannot do this, right? Anyway, while I'm up there, I get a call. The FBI gets a hold of my research, and they're fascinated by it. So I get a call from the FBI, and they say, we want you to come present your research in Quantico. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but let me tell you about my past. And they say, okay, well, we'll get back to you. And then they call me back a few days later, and say, we checked you out and we're really impressed with what you've done. We still want you to come. So I go to Quantico and I present my research to this big group of people. It's not just the FBI, it's a bunch of law enforcement from all across the country that's there for like a conference. And then I have just a line of people afterwards who want to talk to me, right? Because I talk about things that they don't understand, that they've seen, but they didn't understand. So they were really impressed with that. And then that parlays into a fellowship with the FBI for a year. I go back and forth to Quantico doing research with them. And then after that, I needed to get out of Pittsburgh, and the
Immediately.
job came open at Loyola in New Orleans. And the moment I set foot here, I knew that this would be home.
Oh my gosh, what a dreamy place to be. Yeah. Wow.
Why is your life not a movie?
I know. When is Out of the Red gonna be on the big screen?
Really? Wow. Oh my gosh, it should be a movie for sure. So now you're working in New Orleans. New Orleans. Love New Orleans, by the way. It's one of my favorite places.
Have you been to Jacquemus?
Yes, yeah.
Did you want to lick the bowl clean? Like, it's so good.
Most places here are so good. I mean, they said
Oh
we
my gosh,
step
they're
there
food.
to gain 20 pounds like in the first year because this food
It's
is
okay. You wouldn't look like a New Orleans person if you didn't have that little bit of extra on you, you know?
What's your favorite New Orleans from an insider? Favorite restaurant?
that's really hard because you'd have to go by genre, right? There's
Yeah.
so many things that are just fantastic. This is
good.
mind-blowingly incredible.
Do you like a darker roux or a lighter roux?
I just
I'm a
go with
lighter roux
whatever's
girl.
there. Honestly,
Oh my gosh. We have a picture of your beautiful family.
Oh my gosh, gorgeous.
And your wife is also a professor. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
my wife is amazing. She is incredible. Yeah,
And
she
gorgeous.
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 stunning. You know, she has this beautiful white hair that she's had for a long time. She cannot walk out of the house without getting compliments from men.
Oh, yes.
and women, right. And she started going white. And her hair started going white in her 20s, and she dyed it for a long time, but finally just let it be natural. And people just don't believe that it's natural, but it is just so beautiful.
I was looking at her picture. I'm like, I bet she turns heads everywhere she goes.
She does. She does.
Yeah.
She is the premier domestic violence expert in the region. She gets called for everything, right? So we
Yeah.
just do expert witness work now, working on cases. And she is so prominent that people are afraid of her. Like they know if she's coming, then they kind of want to make a deal and be done with it, because if they try to challenge her, they end up embarrassed.
I like to say their butts pucker. She's got the pucker factor.
Tell her she can go ahead and use that on her cards. It's fine.
On the other hand, do not have the pucker factor. I need to learn how to get some of that.
Yeah. She needs to teach a class on it.
You have
Yeah.
tickets.
Yes, my stepdaughter, Macy, she's at Tulane. She studied.
Another beautiful girl.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
Tulane.
stunning.
Oh my gosh, Tulane is so beautiful.
And you have a little one.
Yes, my son Julian, he's 6.
So cute.
Girl, yeah, he's very charming. He's neurodivergent and brilliant, and loves to talk to adults. And so college kids feel like they can have a conversation at their level on par with him.
Will he do an interview with us?
We do an interview called Littles, Adjacent Littles. And those precocious kiddos are our favorites, you know? So if he ever wants to jump on and feel like a big podcaster, it's really fun. We do kind of a rapid fire questions and answers, and they tell stories, and it's really sweet to hear their little voices.
I'd love that, yeah. And it would need to be rapid fire to keep his interest, that's for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, we have a game we play. It's Would You Rather. It's really cute. The kids love it at school. It's working on your favorite. So
That would be awesome. Let's get him on, and I would love to interview your wife as well.
yeah.
Yes, my gosh.
This has been an inspiration. I have a very strong feeling of that how children are treated makes a world of difference. And the more you can give them that respect and that love and patience and kindness and help to direct, it's going to pay off in the end, you know. So I usually have kids. They're the kiddos that you hear about on TikTok and the news, throwing things around the school, bringing little weapons in their backpacks, things like that. And but we show them there's another way. There's a different way to get your needs met and to hear it, let your voice be heard. And then usually if I get them early enough, if I get them around kinder, first or second, by the time they leave in middle school, they're the top kids. They're because they're so smart.
Yeah.
Like Mary was saying about you, it's like school was not where they shine sometimes, but if you give them the tools, they can shine. And a lot of times they are just, I'm always telling people, they're gifted. As kids gifted. They have survival instinct that none of us could have done. A lot of them come from extremely abusive homes, you know, and bigger people have taught them how to communicate. And it's usually through violence or aggression, you know.
Christian, are your parents still with us?
No, my father, he actually passed away like a month after the book came out.
Oh.
And we had actually started to reconcile, you know, he was not doing well, you know, it was primarily complications from diabetes. He had part of his foot cut off and he just wasn't doing well, but I would visit him every time I went to San Antonio. And so that was just very tragic. My mother, she's doing very, very well. She's she's awesome. She is living her best life. You know, she went on a spiritual journey through every different type of spirituality, you know, just to learn about it. And now she goes on vacations as much as she can and wants to experience the world. She's doing great. She loves Mary Wynn. Yeah, she's fantastic. I see her as much as I can. She would want me to see her more often, I'm
Of
sure.
course.
Where does she live?
San Antonio still.
Oh, yay. Okay. Okay.
Maybe we'll go knock on her door.
Exactly.
Well, you can't do that because she's on Port St. Houston,
Oh.
right? So you have to get permission to go in, but she can come out and get you.
Yeah. That is incredible. I bet she is so proud of you.
Oh my God.
Are you gonna write any more books?
Yes,
I
please.
am, yeah. I actually got approved for a sabbatical this coming academic year, so starting in the fall. And my current project, what I'm working on, I've conducted 92 life history interviews with people who were serving life in prison.
Wow.
In Louisiana, but there was this real magical window where some of them had the chance to get out due to some changes in law in the last 10 years in the Supreme Court. So juvenile lifers, basically people who got life sentences as juveniles, they had to be reviewed and some of them got out. So I interviewed them, learned about their lives, learned about the history of Angola, the prison. So I'll be writing a book about that.
I can't wait. I'm on chapter 4 of your book, and your writing is fantastic. And even from Mary's interview, a couple of friends have already sent me pictures of themselves holding up your book, and I'm like, yeah, I love it. And so, you're such an amazing human.
I'm so glad we finally got to meet you. I've been hearing your name at family dinners for years. Your name gets dropped like celebrity in our family. So
Yeah, for sure. We hope you come back on, especially when you release your new book.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
we would love to interview your son and your wife. And
yes.
Oh, they're adjacent, right?
yeah.
And if your daughter wants to be on our single ready to mingle, we do that too.
She's not single. She's actually
Oh,
held
okay.
on to her high school boyfriend all through college, which is unusual now.
Yeah. You know, I'm starting to hear more and more of that because I think younger people want that connection for a longer time, you know?
Yeah. I love that.
Especially with so much uncertainty in the world right now.
Yeah. I think they had a time where people were just very lonely, but now it's people are searching for connection again.
Yeah,
That's what this is about.
yay. Yeah. Well, it's been such a dream.
Such a pleasure.
We're gonna drop this real fast because people are like, we want to hear from Christian now. We want to
Yes.
hear Christian's story. How do people find you?
Yes.
How do people find me? Well, I mean, you can look at Loyola's website. That's easy. My email is cbolden, CBOLDEN @loyola.edu. I'm not open on social media for kind of obvious reasons, right? I have students, things like that. But you just Google me. It's pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Come back often.
I will. I will.
Texas,
They're gonna-
Texas.
Yeehaw.